that's my word of the year, and it's been my company's word of the year, is you don't need more, kind of phrase, more than a word, but you don't need more. And I think a lot of people in their mind immediately go to, I need more followers, I need more engagement, I want more likes, I want more video views, my YouTube, I want more subscribers. And then it's like just this more all the time. And I think what we're missing is that doesn't actually matter if you're not connecting to the ones that are there, right? I would rather have my 11,000 and know that I can consistently talk to all of those people, or the core chunk of good ones.
From a professional soccer career to becoming a driving force in the mortgage industry, Brian Covey has shown what it takes to find your competitive edge. Get off the sidelines and get in the game. Find your competitive edge with Brian Covey.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to another edition of Finding Your Competitive Edge. So you hear me talk about this a lot, but I believe this is more relevant than it ever has been about building your personal brand. Look, we all know when you go somewhere, people think they have an idea of who you are. They've seen you on social, whether you're there or not, and they've already formed an opinion about you. Wouldn't it be amazing if you actually had the opinion that correlated to who you are, and you showed up in rooms, people wanted to meet you, they were curious about what you actually did, and business came to you because of who you are and how you showed up on social? Well, my guest today, not only was she a collegiate swimmer, CrossFit athlete, all these cool things that we'll probably dive in today, but she also has started to really emerge as one of those people that I watch and go, what are you doing in social? How are you teaching people, and especially real estate and mortgage, how to win, how to show up on social? Not only does Michelle do some coaching, she speaks, and she's also been on some events that we've done virtually, but it's one of those I want you guys to take a pen and paper today, because you're going to find some things in your social media today, how you show up online and offline, and we're going to help you improve what's there as you go through this. So Michelle, I want to ask you a question before we start. You told me before we started, you're a swimmer and you swam at Rutgers. Mm-hmm. Okay, collegiately, and I'm thinking here, one of the hardest sports, and now you're into CrossFit and all this stuff. So I'm gonna take you back just a little bit. How in the world did you even get into the swimming side? Because I want a little bit personal first. Yeah,
the swimming side is fun. It's a fun story. So my sister actually swam. My sister's almost 4 years older than me. She started swimming pretty early on too. And of course, my mom's bringing me to swim practice with my sister. And I'm the type of personality, even at 4 years old, where I was kind of running around the pool deck all the time. Mom, I want to do it too. Mom, I want to do it too. Finally, I just convinced the lifeguard to let me jump in. And I actually literally jumped in. My mom had no idea, but luckily the lifeguard was watching, and I just swam across the pool with no help or any of that. So my mom was like, okay, I guess we can put her in lessons. And so I immediately started swimming pretty much weekly right at that point. And then it just never stopped. It just kept going from there.
I love it. And the fact that you stayed through college, and I share this story because I want people to know, like, literally your background, your commitment, the things that you've seen and done, and you've gone through that. And then to go to school like Rutgers is not some small, we'll just say. Yeah. It's a legit school. For sure. So do you still swim?
Not competitively in any capacity or in any capacity. I enjoy swimming, but I think I swam for such a long time at that level that is really hard for me to do. I tried and went and joined like a local club team, and I immediately just went to like, oh, I want to compete, or how old am I, and am I close enough to masters? And at the time in my life, like where I am right now, that's just not where I wanted my head to go. Yeah. I was like, I want to do this for fun and enjoy it. So every now and again, I'll throw my suit on and jump in, but it's not consistent.
When you're busy, you got a 2.5-year-old, you're saying Knox, which is awesome. You guys moved here into Nashville almost a year ago.
Yep, almost
living
a year.
in Clarksville. So I'm sure we're going to talk about some of that journey, but shaping some of that, because I always love people's identity. Like, where did you come from? What was some of your story? But we're going to jump into the social piece. I think people want to know, and this is the question I get all the time, is like, how do I build a personal brand? Where do I start with this? You shared this stat that I pulled up. And it was about real estate agents. So our friends that are here, this could hurt some of their feelings, but it's probably true. You said 57% of real estate agents say that they're using Instagram for their business, but half of them feel confident they know what to post and what to say. Mm-hmm. Okay, what's going on here?
Yeah, 57% of people say that they know what they're doing, or say that they're at least using it, but only 46% of those 57% are saying that they're doing it proficiently. So we're talking a quarter of the total population, maybe, right? So it's not a good number. And honestly, I think people are overcomplicating, and I've been doing this for 10 years and I still think it's the same. It's the same conversation, whether it was 10 years ago or whether it was this morning, of just purely overcomplicating the entire process.
So how do we uncomplicate it? Let's start there, because I think we all look at it and go, man, there's all these platforms, and you hear about TikToks possibly going away, and there's a lot of noise. I will just say, even from like, I feel like I spend time researching and learning this. It's noisy. So how do we cut through that and help people?
Yeah, I would tell you the number one thing to pay attention to is how much money is in your bank account, and is it coming from Instagram or Facebook or whatever? And that's what matters, right? So the vanity metric aspect, I mean, I will never get on stage. I will never speak virtually. I'll never work with a private coaching client and say, hey, your goal should be to get more followers, or hey, let's get you more engagement percentage wise. Let's get more likes. Let's get more this. I think that's my word of the year. And it's been my company's word of the year is you don't need more, kind of phrase, more than a word, but you don't need more. And I think a lot of people in their mind immediately go to, I need more followers, I need more engagement, I want more likes, I want more video views, my YouTube, I want more subscribers. And then it's like just this more all the time. And I think what we're missing is that doesn't actually matter if you're not connecting to the ones that are there, right? I would rather have my 11,000 and know that I can consistently talk to all of those people, or the core chunk of good ones every day, every week. And again, I think we'll talk about a little bit being present, or not having to be physically present in our messaging, but having a presence that does that for us, right? And so that's kind of all weaved in. But I think ultimately people need to get away from, I need more, because what are you chasing, right? And I think that's a big question is, are you chasing a number, or are you chasing the relationship that comes from that follower? So if you get 10 followers in a month, that's 10 relationships in your business if they're the right people, right? So what would 10 new meetings a month do for you? What would 10 new loans a month do for you? What would 10 new leads in the real estate community do for you? And so instead of chasing more leads, right, let's chase what is already right in front of us. They're giving us their market share, or in this case, their eyes. We're just not doing anything with it.
Oh, I love that reframe. Yeah. And we were all guilty of it, because back in the day, it was like, you had to rush to get to, I think it was 10,000 followers or whatever.
For the swipe up.
The swipe up. And you're like, well, we were programmed for that. And then it was rushed to get a certain amount of engagement and followers to try to get a blue check on Facebook and Instagram and all these things. You're like, and we were all just chasing these things on this hamster wheel, I call it. And I love the way you frame it. I always think people are so much of quick to discount. Like those 10 people that followed you, what are you doing with them? And I was thinking as you shared that is there a strategy you teach or you would share is, let's just say it was even 10 followers in a month. How would you go then and engage with them? Is there a process in which you start to cultivate that? So it doesn't matter if you have 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, like how would you cultivate those relationships from a new follow, maybe a new connection to a relationship?
Yeah, first and foremost, don't send them a message and say, hey, Brian, thanks for following me. Don't do that, right? And that's what a lot of people do.
That's what most people teach.
Is what most people teach. And I will say I've been in the social media space for 10 years, and I really actually dislike saying that I own an Instagram marketing company sometimes, because I think a lot of times it has this very poor taste in people's mouth. Like you'll say, oh, I own an Instagram marketing company, and then everyone's face just like deflates in the room. And it's sad, right? Because that's what's happened in our industry is you have all these people that have claimed to be quote unquote experts, but are they doing it, and are they living it every single day in their business? Or, I went to a conference and there was a 15-year-old kid up on stage. It was a social media conference. The whole thing was real estate agents. 15-year-old kid sitting up on stage talking about how he already had 1 million followers and how he made $1 million a year off of his, social channels. And I'm thinking, are you reading the room? Because you got 50-year-olds in here, in the mortgage and real estate space that's not their life. That's not what they should be caring about. So I just think we're teaching the wrong things. I think we're focused on the wrong things. But as far as specific strategy, I teach an engagement tracker is what we call it, Beyond the Method engagement tracker. It's a 5-day specific tracker. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday all have their own individual core focus. And long story short, your goal should be to outbound prospect 45 comments and 20 story replies on a daily basis. That's like the quote unquote golden rule. Now for you and I, Brian, we don't need to do 45 and 20 every day, right? Because if we can send 5 to the right 5, we're going to get 1 or 2 opportunities out of that 5. Honestly, I spent about 10 minutes a day on it. You were my only message that one morning. If you remember when we were getting ready to do our webinar,
yes,
you were my only outbound prospect that day. That was all I did. And now we're sitting here a few months later, right? And it took me 5 minutes to send that LinkedIn message to you. So it's a matter of understanding what is our goal each day, because I also think a lot of people get trapped in, I've spent 4 hours on Instagram, and what the heck did I get out of that?
Yeah.
Or I'm putting all this time into LinkedIn, and what am I getting out of that? So each day of the week, I specifically focus on a category based off of what my ultimate end game goal is. Like, what does that look like for me? So for a real estate agent, for a mortgage professional, you're going to have 5 different categories each day, or for each of the days, right? So maybe if you're an LO listening to this, one of the things you'll do is you'll focus on realtors, right? So you might have a Dream 100 day. And what a Dream 100 day simply means is go find your top 100 agents that you are not currently working with, or that maybe you've had a meeting with, but they haven't sent you a deal yet. Make sure you have a filter on it. And like, when I say filter, I mean like in your head, right? Of, hey, what type of agent do I actually want to work with? And what does that look like? And then whether that's you pull up the data, you know exactly that this agent's doing 2 to 5 deals a month, like whatever your avatar of the ideal realtor is. And so that Dream 100 day, your only job is to go talk to as many of the people in that list on that day as possible. Another day for you and I might be podcasts, right? If we know that our business thrives off being on podcasts, go find podcasts to get on one day. If we go back to the LO example, another great one is LinkedIn. Are you cross-pollinating your platforms? Most loan officers spend a ton of time on LinkedIn, but how many followers or friends, quote unquote, on LinkedIn are following you on Instagram? And every time I've ever said that, people are like, oh crap.
Yes.
Because they're not doing it. So each day of the week, to my point, right, you have a specific goal, and that gives you a very clear direction. I'm waking up, this is my job, then I can move on to the next thing in my checklist of things I have to get done today. And that alleviates I just spent 4 hours on social media and I have no idea what I just did.
I love it. Hey guys, it's Brian here. I hope you are enjoying the show. By the way, if you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur looking to grow your personal brand, make a bigger impact, maybe increase your leads, and grow your revenue, let's help you get started today by connecting up with my friends over at the Brand Builders Group. You've heard me talk about them, but if you're new here, this is definitely the first step to get you started in turning your reputation into revenue. Head over to freebrandcall.com/Brian Covey. Again, to set up your free brand call, go to freebrandcall.com/Brian Covey. To set up a free strategy call with one of the team at Brand Builders, and they will dive into your specific goals for how you want to grow your personal brand. I can't wait to hear how it goes. I want to break some of that down, because some of that we're doing, and some of it I want people to hear and understand. Like when we started, my number one thing was I've been on LinkedIn for like 16 years. It was my first platform. It was the only one allowed we could do back in corporate America. And I remember thinking, okay, I wasn't on Instagram, I wasn't on Facebook until, some people know this story, but funny enough, my wife and I were traveling for one of the awards trips for work. And she's like, you got to get off my Facebook. Like we had the shared page. I'm embarrassed enough to say, but we'll own it. And she's like, I can't be friends with all your work people. You need your own account. So I went and did that. But one of the first things was I was like, well, I mean, I have these people on LinkedIn that I've been here forever. Let's just see how many of them will come over. And that was our first like several thousand of like, how do I just get them over there? And it's what's there. And I started with a top 25 list. And so I'd love for you to talk about that, because you're talking about 45 and engagement. And my whole social strategy literally revolved around, for probably 3 years, I'm going to go engage in everybody else's stuff and make them feel better about themselves, show them some love, and just comment on their stuff, and not 1 and 2 word answers or responses, like actual thoughtful comments. And I've been teaching some of that. So I'd love for you to break this down. Because people miss this and they want to skip and they want to go, hey, Michelle, I want to be a rock star and get all these leads. Like I just want to post and leads come in. I'm like, yeah, it didn't really work that way for me. I don't know anybody that it's worked that way, that they've cut through, shortcuts to get there. So break that down a little bit, the 45 and some of the engagements they do. I would say that's kind of more of the beginner, right, that comes in that needs to start before they go into what you talked about is you dropped me a message and I responded, which I want to talk about in a minute because that was cool.
Yeah, for sure. 45-20 is like the golden rule for someone who's never done this before. They really don't know how to active prospect. And I want to clarify active prospecting. You and I both know what that means, but just for clarity purposes, right? Social media is typically a passive prospecting platform. What does that mean? That just means you're posting content and you're sitting and waiting for someone to reach out to you. You're the guy who thinks that, if I post on social, leads are just going to get thrown at me. That's not reality. And I don't mean you, I mean like you listening to this, but so when you're outbound prospecting, right, that's active prospecting. So you're producing content and then you're actively outbound messaging. And I honestly can't believe more people aren't doing this, but the reality is they aren't. And that's why I've been in business for 10 years. But active prospecting means, hey, you're somebody that in my mind is somebody that I want to know. So I'm going to send you a message. I'm going to take the initiative, put the ball in my court, right? And create an opportunity. Now, the biggest thing when it comes to 4520, which stands for 45 comments and 20 story replies, which is quote unquote what I teach, is leverage, man. Like leverage is everything. So the very first podcast I was ever on back in 2019 was Phil Treadwell's, mortgage marketing expert. It took me 6 tries to get him to say yes to me. It's the funniest story. He still says, he tells it way better than I tell it, but his wife was like, just give her a chance. Like, what's the worst that happens? You record the episode and you don't publish it. And so he finally gave me the chance. It was a 35-minute episode. It was very fast, right? And afterwards, he didn't publish it right away at all. But 6 months later, he messaged me and said, hey, I just wanted to let you know, I've been watching you and I'm ready to publish your episode. I think you've earned it. And I was like, I hope I can say this, but holy shit. Like, I've made an impression and now I'm going to keep going. So what did I then do? I leveraged my relationship with Phil to create other relationships with other people like Phil in the mortgage industry. And I still to this day have an email from Phil that's saved in my inbox because he told me, he said, get on every podcast you can possibly get on and do it for free. And I was like, at the time, you're like, I don't want to do it for free, but okay. And then you started to figure out like why he said that. And so when you're doing 4520 each day, you have to think about what is my goal today? And each of those categories are dependent on the person, right? So every single person listening to this might be different. For me, it's podcasts, it's events, it's webinars, it's things that are going to allow me to have a platform in front of people. If you're an individual loan officer or an individual real estate agent watching this, it's going to be outbound to D2C is what I call it, direct to consumer or direct to vendor partner or a realtor, depending on what side you're on. So let's say you're going direct to real estate agent. The Dream 100 list would be like a Monday, but Tuesday might be your top 25 agents or 30 agents that are already sending you deals, but you're not going to necessarily talk to them that day. You're going to create leverage through them that day. So let's say you're one of my realtors. I'm the loan officer. You're one of my top agents. I'm going to click on your profile. There's a little person with a plus sign in your profile. When I click on that, I get all of the people that Instagram says that I might know based off of my relationship with you. So what do? I send all of those people messages, but here's the key, is I'm not talking about you right away, my relationship to you out of the gate. What I'm doing is I'm creating engagement based off what they're sharing. I'm making it about them, right? The number one thing about social media, especially Instagram, is people want to feel seen and they want to feel heard, right? Oh, you saw my content. What does that make you feel? Oh, that makes me feel great, right? Oh my gosh, somebody actually saw that post I put out. Cool, right? So you got to make them feel seen. So your initial message to that person is about them. It's about what they shared. It's about what they are posting. And then if they respond, which there's a whole psychology aspect to like how to message. But if they respond, which our clients that do this way get about a 50+ response rate. So there's definitely some science to that right now. What would a 50% response rate look like for cold calling if that would change the game for most people, right?
Big time.
So, but if we're getting a 50% reply rate, right, that means that you now have the opportunity to use leverage. So if we're talking about Tuesday being that day I'm leveraging my relationship with you, one of my top agents, to go create new, that next message to that person is going to be, hey, by the way, I actually found you through Brian. Brian and I have been working together forever. How have we not been connected? And it's so simple. It's not salesy. It's not invasive in any capacity. They're not coming, or they shouldn't in theory feel like, oh, Brian's just trying to, or Michelle's just trying to earn my business, because you're coming at it from a place of like genuine interest. And then I'm going to digress for a second because I think you'll love this, but the psychology behind following people, I think we need to talk about here for just a moment, because everybody goes on a follow spree. Follow all the time. Stop doing that, right? Because when you find someone that you want to be talking to, do not follow them first. What should you do? Start conversation with them, let them follow you first. And then I have a golden 24-48 hour rule, which means that once someone starts following me, I wait 24 to 48 hours before I follow them back. And in that 24 to 48 hours, what am I doing? I'm talking to them. I'm continuing the conversation, and then I follow them back. 2 things. 1, they get a new notification. 2nd thing, they realize I didn't just come at them to earn their business, because what does a realtor think when they get a whole bunch of loan officers that are following them?
Asking for referrals.
This person wants my business, right? So I could keep going.
I love this. And the tactical, nobody's ever broken it down like that on the show or shared that I think to that level of detail, which I think people need. Because they go on there, they hear these crazy strategies of you just need to follow all these people. You need to try to grow your followers in any way. They're using crazy hashtags. They're posting stuff just to get attention. And it's not really, to your point earlier, it's not even bringing in business or referrals and people that they have. So I love that you break down this 45-20 and you start to go through that. I love to move for more advanced people, folks out there, they've got a little bit of a following. They are actively engaged on social, some capacity and all that. I see people get stuck in this world. And it's like their content, they get stuck in what to post, when to post, what video editing software. It's just, the list goes on and on about the excuses of why not to. What are the best loan officers doing today to differentiate themselves and really be seen?
On the content side, the number one thing I can tell you is stop posting about mortgages all the time, because I don't care, right? As a consumer, I understand at my level, right? I've now bought and sold 5 houses, or 4 houses, plus I live in my 5th. So I understand what a VA loan does, right? I don't need to know what amortization means. I don't really care, right? I don't need to see the bar graph of the line graph thing that I don't even know what it is. The candlestick graph, is that what it's called?
Oh yeah.
I don't care, right? So the number one thing I will say as far as the content piece is, what are you passionate about? And this is something I've been preaching to the choir for the last 6 months, truly, is, what are you passionate about as a loan officer? Who are you as a human being outside of doing loans, right? And just yesterday, I was on a coaching call with someone, and he was like, well, I just built a retaining wall in my backyard. And I'm like, great, let's go to ChatGPT. How can we create an analogy of building a retaining wall and tying that into mortgages? It was fascinating what came out.
Oh, so I'd love to read that one.
The entire series, I call it a value series in my world, which is one of your pillars of content. But long story short, a value series is one topic divided into 5 sub-questions. Each of those 5 sub-questions is its own video of, call it 40 to 50 seconds, which is the sweet spot on Instagram. All of those 5 videos get deployed across the month. So you're not posting one video and then all of a sudden running back into the, I don't know what to post next problem. But tying passions into your content, because I would watch a video about someone, how the heck are you going to tie a retaining wall into this mortgage conversation? I'm interested in what you're about to say, right? I did a webinar recently and I was talking about swimming. So the first picture on the screen was the bottom line, the black line on the bottom of a pool. And I asked the audience, I was like, what do you guys see? And people, I'm sure people in the audience were like, where the heck is Michelle going with this? Right? But tying our passions into what we are producing as far as content. I have another client who loves plants. Die-hard plant lady. Everything she has in her life is plants. Every time we're on Zoom, I swear she's got more behind her. But all of her clients, it's her closing gift. She has an affiliate deal with a little plant shop in town. They give her free plants for staging and all of that. Plants are her life. And so I was like, great, Sarah, how are we going to build a value series around plants? And she's like, what? I'm like, let's record a series about plants and how to move with plants, or what to look for if you're buying a home and if you're a plant person, right? Because if you're a plant person, you're going to think about what type of windows are these, how much natural light, what's the angle, all the things that you and I probably would be like, I don't care, right? Maybe my husband might, or your wife might. My husband doesn't care, but you get my point, right? Is she's going to go find her community on the platform because she is talking about what she loves. And what ends up happening is she's more invested in the content. She's stoked. She can't wait to go record the full series in the plant shop. She literally texted the owner of the plant shop when we were on our coaching call and was like, can I come record a video series in your plant shop? She was just so excited about the whole process. Yeah. I just wrote another series about triathletes, triathlons, right? And how that can correlate into the real estate transaction. My client was on Zoom and just what the heck? I'm like, but isn't that fun? Wouldn't you watch a video about triathlons and how that relates to the in theory, the triathlon of the real estate transaction, right? What does the swim represent? The beginning. Swim is the shortest part of the entire event, right? Which is also stupid in my opinion, triathlon creators, because it's my favorite one. But the swim is the shortest part of a triathlon. which if you create a mirror or an analogy for the real estate transaction, what's the shortest part of a transaction? Typically finding the house, right? Because usually you can find a house pretty quickly, at least in my experience. Now the bike is pretty long, right? It's usually about 100 miler depending on what type of triathlon you're doing. So that's the long in the middle part of a real estate transaction where you're like, okay, well, we did our inspection, we're just kind of waiting, like what's happening? You're sort of in that weird, at least for a buyer, that's the worst part, right? You're like, come on. And then the run is kind of the give it all you got at the end. You got 26.2, depending on what type of triathlon you're doing, aka Ironman, right? But depending on what you're doing at the end, like, so that's the sprint to the finish line. But my point in saying all of this is, would you watch that type of content? If you're going to talk about mortgages, would you watch that? Or would you watch the, hey, my name is Brian, and I am going to tell you about the interest rates and what the new conventional loan limits are. Oh, and by the way, if you want to know what amortization is, I'll give that to you too. Yeah.
How many mortgage people always say, you're posting for other mortgage people? Which, by the way, if that's where you get your referrals, awesome. But it's the wrong content to get those referrals, absolutely. I would argue. And I always laugh and I go, the only people that nerd out on what we're posting over here and like the candlestick stuff and what's happening, like I love our friends at NBS Highway. I'm like, this is phenomenal. But unless you can correlate that to your point into a story, and I love you shared that, because what'll typically happen when I share stuff about soccer or like CrossFit stuff, and working out, those are my people. And those are the ones that get attracted to me, that are real estate agents, financial planners that will send business, or loan officers who want to come join our team. They connected on that. They didn't even really get the message. They're like, well, that was just kind of cool because I like what you like. And so I don't want people to miss that, because you are living your life. You might think it's super boring and it's only you. There's a tribe of people out there.
That's your community.
Isn't it?
I would rather hang out with someone like you that's into CrossFit, because guess what? We can talk about CrossFit and we can align on life. I mean, an MBS Highway is a great example. I mean, they are rock stars, but who are they attracting? Their job and their goal is not to attract a real estate agent, right? Their goal is to provide value to you as the loan officer. So you are their ideal client.
That's right.
So them posting the candlestick stuff, that's important. But now you, Brian, taking that and posting it, hoping to go get business from a real estate agent, there's no it's not correlating.
Yeah, it doesn't happen there.
No. And I think that's the missing piece, right? Go build your community, and you're not alienating anyone by posting about CrossFit. I'm not alienating my audience, right? By posting about coffee. If you're a tea person, I'm not alienating the tea people from loving me, right? I'm just focused on building my community the way that I authentically am. And people outside of that will come and they'll want to work with you because they feel connected to you, even if they themselves are not coffee people or CrossFit people or whatever. So
what makes you unique? Okay, break down what's your definition of a personal brand?
It's a really hard question still for me. But for me personally, I don't know if you've ever read High Performance Habits by Brendon Burchard. Incredible book, right? I've read it 5 times, and any new employee I ever hire, I make them read it. Like, that's the first thing. But I remember reading this book many, many years ago before I officially launched Beyond the Method. And I was sitting on my couch and I was reading the 6 high performing habits, and going through it and thinking, I got 4 of the 6, I got 4 for sure. The other 2, maybe, but I could work on those, right? And so I remember reading that and thinking, if Brendon is telling me from reading this book that I can go be a high performer and create a big organization, which is my goal, there's a reason for why I want my company to do what it does. But that to me became a big point of what my personal brand needs to represent. So I thought to myself, what are the 3 words that I want people to think about when they think about me, right? And the very first and foremost right now especially is hope, right? So when people read my content, watch my videos, when people join our courses or whatever it might be, I want them to feel so hopeful that it is simpler than what they think it is. So when someone consumes my content, and to me, that's what a personal brand really is when someone consumes your content, how are you making them feel? It's because I don't think it's associated to the accolades, right? Because those are cool, but that's not what helps me go to sleep at night, right? What helps me go to sleep at night is the messages that I get from people who are like, yeah, I've bought a bunch of courses before, but I am so mad at myself that I didn't find you sooner, or whatever the message is. I live for that, right? So for me to be able to create hope, that's what I want people to watch a video, even if it's 40 seconds, and be like, dang, Michelle just made that real simple. And so a personal brand to me ultimately comes down to what are the 3 words that you want people to feel when they consume your content? And then are you living that, right? So like if someone meets me in real life, I don't want there to ever be a disconnect between who they thought I was and who I actually am. Because I mean, you and I both know a lot of people like that. And I never want to be that. I want people to be like, wow, you're exactly who I thought you were.
That's right.
The only thing anyone ever tells me is you're shorter than I thought. Like people think I'm very tall and I'm 5'3" for those of you guys listening to this, but
yeah,
I'm very tiny.
I've heard that a few times. People are like, man, I thought you were a lot taller. And I was like, I played soccer, right? Like I was not a basketball player. Let's be real with it. But you were a goalie. And we laugh about that stuff. But I love that you share that word hope because I think that's needed. I think about one of our friends, Jen Gottlieb, wrote Be Seen, you know, and I think about, she was talking about that, is people want to be seen. And I shared your story at the beginning so people will relate and go, oh man, swimming in college, and put that together. And then now you've launched your own media company and you have all these things there and the courses and the speaking. How did you take what you've done? Because I think we've given people enough tactical advice. I don't want to overwhelm them. I think what you've given people, if they just went and implemented what we've already shared, if you're listening, go do that, right? Because that will move you forward, get you another relationship, which we all know. And I don't want to forget this. You shared about that one contact with Phil. I don't want people to miss this. Is one person, one contact, one podcast, you know, and Ed talks about this all the time. It's like, you just need the one person. There's one person for everybody, I believe, today. They just need to go connect, take that step, take that chance. Took you 6 attempts to finally get on there. And then now we're going to share this podcast with everybody because this is one of the more tactical that I feel like people are there. But I want to shift gears because you're speaking, you've got courses that you do right now that you work with people, and then you talked about the coaching, and I'd love to the coaching first, just to kind of jump into it.
Sure.
What are you hearing out there from people, and there might be some of our listeners in this same spot of this year is different. I think it's my 22 plus years, like it just feels different, looks different. Why should they even care as you're listening to the coaching? And I always think about the risk reward of like, why should they even go in and invest in this personal brand or buy a course or hire a coach and jump into all this?
Well, that's a loaded question.
I know it is, but I want people to listen because they are not listening, I find. I
agree. And why should they do it? And at the end of the day, guys, we use Instagram, we use Facebook more than we use the internet. Like, and I hate to say that. My parents are the same now. My mom is on Facebook way more than she Googles anything. And not just for the grandbabies anymore, right? Like, that's what the older generation used to say to me all the time. They're like, well, I'm only on Instagram or Facebook for my grandbabies and that's it. And I'm like, well, that has shifted. Welcome to 2024. But more importantly, like, I think the initial point of what I have been saying up until this point is the tactical aspect of what you and I do is what's missing in the industry. Because I think we go to conferences, I think we listen to podcasts, we listen to whatever it is, or go to watch a webinar and we leave like feeling good. We kind of have this like hoorah feeling, but I get home and I'm like, or somebody might get home and just be like, what do I actually do? And I think that's what's created a very bad image, if you will, for a lot of us as coaches, because they assume if I hire someone, well, it's going to fall flat. Like, what am I actually going to get out of this? And the number one question I get and have gotten in the last 30 days is, what's my ROI? And I'm like, okay, which makes sense, right? Because people are struggling with the dollars and cents aspect of like, if I invest this money, how fast am I going to get it back? And first of all, I would say you got to stop asking that freaking question, because am I your person? Like, have you listened to my content? And do you feel like I am someone that can connect with you and help you make an impact? But most importantly, are you doing what I'm telling you to do? 97%, maybe 98% are going to say no, right? And the people that say no, then my next statement or response back to the ROI question is, okay, well, if all I do is give you more confidence in what to be posting, give you more of an understanding of how to prospect, and then teach you how to build relationships in a way that's actually going to give you phone calls or get you phone calls and get you Zoom meetings, did you win by hiring me? And all of them are like, and I'm like, okay, so why are you worried about the price tag? And honestly, my pricing's not that crazy. It's actually kind of cheap compared. And that's because I don't want to take all your money. Like, literally, I want to make an impact in what you're doing. So I think when you're looking at a coach, think about your energy. Does it match mine? And then most importantly, am I the type of person that you feel like you're going to get on screen with and do your homework before you show up to the next call? Because if not, then I'm not your coach. If you want someone to just make you feel good all the time, I'm not your coach. So
I love that though. And I wanted people to hear that, because it's one of those, like what you've even shared today, the value to your point is like, if they just went and executed, I mean, Michelle, if they just went and did those things, like one of those, and said, I'm gonna go do this in my business. And I saw some post, I don't remember who it was, but they were talking about, for a lot of people, they struggle in this decision process. And it's always, is what it's gonna cost me gonna be worth what I can get out of it? And I get the logic of thinking, but what I've often found is, it's oftentimes when I bet a little heavier on myself or went further in, that then I'm more committed and I do the work that's actually required to get there and go, it's just like signing up at a gym. It's like, okay, good first step. Now are you going to show up? Are you going to train hard? Are you going to recover? Are you going to eat? Like all the things that go with it. You're like, if you do the work, that's why that person sees results. And the other person that just signed up, you both signed up and you went through. What should loan officers today, I get this question a lot, I want your response. What should they be doing in this 2/3 of the year left, and to shift their business so that if they are either on social or not, start to move to where this direct to consumer, I think, continues to grow? And let's talk about that. Like, what should they be doing to position themselves in their market? Like where you talk, you've given them some tactics and things, but I'd love to know, what should they be thinking about and doing to start to position themselves, where you've given them some tactics there, but how do they now show up? What should they be doing consistently? Like, what does all that start to look like?
Amazing question. Such a good question. So the number one thing about this is, remember when I was talking about the tracker, right? You have your 5 days of the week. If you're a real estate agent or a loan officer, doesn't matter what side you're on, one of the days or multiple of those days, and I'm getting into my teaching brain here, but like you're going to have week number 1 and then you're going to have week number 2. So you're going to have 2 weeks that you rotate back. So you're going to go Monday through Friday and then Monday through Friday, then back to week 1. Hopefully if you were listening to that, you got that. But week number 2 is brand awareness. So what that means is we're not focused on getting a relationship out of this communication. Whereas in like week 1, my focus is to talk to you or to talk to somebody that I know that can create leverage, right? So meaning I have a CTA, I have a goal of why I'm initiating this conversation. Week 2 is all about brand awareness. So whether you're on the real estate or mortgage side, your goal is, what are your top 5 cities? What are your top 5 zip codes, right? So I have a client who's in Northern Virginia. Well, she's like, well, 5 zip codes is like 15 square miles, like, because it's super tight, right? And I was like, same as Clarksville. There's like 6 zip codes in Clarksville. So like maybe it's the cities versus the zip codes, depending on where you are, right? So take that with a grain of salt, depending on who you are. But if you're focused on the top 5 cities or the top 5 zip codes of where you are doing loans or where you want to be selling real estate, then on those days in your tracker, your only job is to be everywhere, right? Comment on everything that's related to small businesses. But again, go find your tribe, right? So I always use myself as an example in that and say, if I tomorrow decided that I was going to go sell real estate and that was going to be my primary job, my only focus would be the military spouse community that is into fitness. So all of your CrossFit gyms, all of your burn boot camps, all of your F45s, all your Orange Theories, where are the wives hanging out? In the military community, the wives make the decisions on a lot of things, right? Why? Because the husbands a lot of time are gone.
Right.
So when you're building building a sphere of people who could buy homes, usually it's the wives that are going to say, hey husband, I need a home to live in. I don't want to live on base, because we're the ones that have to do that. Right. So if it were me, I would say during my brand awareness day, maybe Tuesday, I assign it to CrossFit day. So I'm going to go engage on all the CrossFit gyms. I'm going to comment on all of the different posts, and my job is to be everywhere. So, and my handle is something real estate, right? So my username, they can see that I'm in real estate, but my comment's not going to say, hey, I'm a realtor, you should call me, right? It's going to be super genuine, and it's going to be intentional, commenting on what they're posting. Now, why would I as a realtor do that? Because if all of those people that are consuming that CrossFit Gyms post click on my profile, they go to my content. This is super important. So I'm going to try to slow down on this piece. If they go to my content and they see me doing CrossFit, and then they also see in my profile that it says I'm a realtor in Clarksville, did I just win a relationship? Now, if they start following me, did I just give myself an opportunity to be in front of someone who potentially is in my tribe and in my area? I sure did, right? But here's the problem is if I don't post personal content, if I don't post the CrossFit stuff, I just lost that relationship because someone's going to see Michelle Realtor commenting on a CrossFit gym post, click on my profile and see nothing but business, and I'm going to be out, right? So that's where the personal and business kind of coming together situation, like, are they separate? Are they the same? They are one.
Yes.
And so that's the reason, right? Is like when we're brand awareness prospecting, same thing for a loan officer, right? Maybe it's your top 5 states because you service multiple states.
Sure.
Maybe you own investment properties. You're a Disney guy, right? Like maybe Florida is a primary focus, but not all of Florida, just like the area around Disney World, because why? Your ideal clients are probably hanging out right there. Right? So brand awareness prospecting, the only difference between active prospecting and brand awareness is we're not ending it in the forms of questions, right? So we're not intending for the conversation to continue. Our goal is just to have the conversation and be present, but not to initiate conversation potentially, but not necessarily to get a reply, right? It's just a different end game. But the brand awareness is how you build your hyper-local community. So if your metrics aren't right, if you look at your dashboard and you're like, why is somebody from Jamaica following me? Why is them like 5% from wherever? And that's not where I do loans or not where I sell real estate. It's because you're not outbound prospecting the way that you should be. And that's how you solve it.
I love that. That's like one of the best answers on brand awareness that I've heard. And
I just went on a crazy tangent, but
I think people need to hear the stories and how you just articulated that. And people should be thinking, okay, who am I? And you have that word, hope that you've got. Like, how do you want people to feel? And you think about all that. I go, man, there's more people that connect with me on soccer and working out and things. And they just then happen to realize, oh, wow, you can help me with my mortgage. And then we started to branch ours out, which I've kind of seen you do this with, you got speaking and coaching and all of the courses and things. Now I've built my circle of, I've got people that can help you with financial planning, CPAs, real estate agents across the country. Like, hey, if you need things in that sphere, I've got people. And they'll come ask me, like, hey, I need help with this. And then you become, that's next level, I say. But when you get hyper local, I love that you share, because most people know what they want people to feel. They think about brand awareness in a way of like, I'm just going to post my company's content. I'm going to post stuff that I think is, like all about the industry. And like, if I read another post about low inventory, where rates are, and
marry the house,
all this stuff,
date the whatever, marry the house, date
the rate thing. And then the NAR settlement, which I would be remiss if I did not bring this up, because I know you've talked about this some, and we see some of these things out there. Help me break this down for some people out there today that are thinking, because this is probably one of the issues I hear the most posted. And as a consumer myself and being in the industry, I'm going, okay, Zillow put out their little one page. They're going to allow the 1 week, I believe, for showings. And then you got, all these real estate companies putting stuff about NAR settlement. What should we even be talking about it? And how should we be talking about it?
I think it depends on what your goal is, right? And that's what we have to talk about. Like, is there a time and a place? Like, I think Ricky Karuk did a live stream.
Love Ricky.
Yeah. So he did like a join my Zoom, let's talk about it. But like, what is Ricky's goal on social, right? Is Ricky recruiting? Yeah.
100%.
Right. So his goal is to be a value source, or the Oz, right, to his organization, and to get and attract people to his organization. That's how you do it if you're him, right? Because if I go to that Zoom and I'm a real estate agent and I'm struggling at my current location or whatever, and I see someone that's that knowledgeable, that personable, all the things, right? Yeah, I'm attracted to that. But if I'm a consumer trying to potentially buy or sell, I don't give a crap about the NAR settlement. Because as a buyer, like, should I know what my rights are as a buyer? Absolutely, of course.
Sure.
Should I know what my rights are as a seller? Yes, absolutely. But like, if you're a real estate agent, why are you posting about that if your goal is to go D2C, right? Versus Ricky's goal or whoever's goal. Another great friend, Tina Call. If you guys don't know who Tina is, you should. She's incredible. But her goal is to recruit, right? And so how is she producing content? She's producing content with the intention of I am recruiting. She's not producing content with the intention of I am generating D2C clients.
That's right.
So who are you? What is your goal? Where are you in your business? And start talking to people that way. Yeah. So again, if I want to know about NAR, I'm going to go to people like Ricky or Tina, or these people that are doing, Kendall Bonner, another great example, brilliant mind, right? These are people I want to listen to if I'm considering what am I as a real estate agent doing and how can I better serve my clients, right? But not as a real estate agent, is this the content I should be posting to attract my buyer that happens to work out at the same gym as me?
Yeah.
So.
I love the way you frame that too, and people miss that. And you know, there's content I'll share specific because obviously I recruit for our company, Revolution Mortgage, across the country, and I'm like, there's things I put out there, and it's very intentional because I call it the surrogate leader. It's like, I'm going to step in, and you're not getting that experience with your current leadership team, and you're like, hold on, Brian shares this. I can go to Brian for these questions. Ultimately, at some point, they're going to have to make a decision.
Yeah.
They want to come over here, they want to stay there, and Ricky does a great job of. That's how he builds and attracts people there. I wanted to ask that because we get this question some. And
it's a great question.
And a lot of our loan officers are like, I need to jump in. I need to do this. And I said, well, one, you're not writing the agreements. Number two, you are not a licensed agent. You're not going into that world. And the third, you said it very well. It's like, what will you attract by posting that? It's not a D2C. Like, you're not getting a consumer calling you going, hey, I know you're going to help with the mortgage, but will you help me with that? They're going to call real estate agents. They're going to call the pros. So they go, okay. I want to know, I love these questions at the end of what have you learned this year that you're working on, like your own leadership journey? I mean, you got your own branding company and you're doing a lot of really cool things. And I'm always just curious, like, what are you learning in this season and growing yourself?
That's another big question. I think for me, this year specifically, 2024 has been the year where I realized why I did what I did 10 years ago. So those of you guys who don't know, I have a 2.5-year-old. His name is Knox. He is everything. But 10 years ago, I was not married and didn't have kids. And I knew I wanted to have kids, but I didn't really know where my life was going to go. So I had actually just really face planted into the CrossFit community at that time, retired from swimming and joined the CrossFit saga, if you will, and competed for close to 6 years at a very high level. But then what happened was my life transitioned, right? And for those of you guys who know CrossFit, and Brian, you'll know this, regionals used to be how you made the games. So, and I promise I have a point with this story, but regionals was how you made the games. And so for my 6 years of CrossFit, I had trained to make the games. And the year that they took away regionals was the year that we should have made the games. So I had been recruited by another gym to go and be their girl. And I have the goosebumps like telling this because it's just a very personal journey for me. But I was recruited to go to this other gym, went to the gym. Our team had so much synergy. We knew that if we went to regionals, we were going to the games. Like, unless somebody got very hurt or somebody just like didn't mentally show up that day, like, we were going to the games. And then not 2 months later, CrossFit announced that they were having this big announcement and that the regional situation was going to shift. And we're like, oh shit, now what? Right. Like, here goes another CrossFit rule. 2 months later, the whole team we purposely plan on going to the gym to watch it together on the live stream TV. And they announced that regionals were gone. And the only way to make the games was to travel the world, literally, to go to these sanctional events. And we're all like, dude, we're broke CrossFit kids. Like, who has the money to do that? Like, yeah, we're sponsored by this and that, but they're not giving us cash, right? So who's buying our flight? And it was a really dark time in my life. Honestly, I can very publicly say this now, and I never used to, but that was the only time in my life I've been suicidal. And it was in that moment, I had no identity whatsoever. Zero. I was like, all of a sudden, the only thing that I ever knew and that I knew I was good at and gave me all the confidence in the world just got ripped right out from underneath me. Yeah. So I quit CrossFit. My whole life shifted. And quitting CrossFit was the best decision I ever made at that time. And I decided I have to do fitness. You and I both know, like, you can't not do it. And especially when you're competitive like we are, I had to find something. So I remember calling my best friend at the time and saying, hey, what do you think I should do? And she's like, what was your favorite part of CrossFit? And I was like, well, I love the barbell. Like, I love being a strong female, because I think a lot of women think, oh, you're bulky, or oh, you're this or whatever. And I'm like, no, I want to outlift my husband, because that's badass, right?
That's awesome.
So she was like, you love the barbell, go find an Olympic weightlifting gym. And I was like, no way. Olympic weightlifting is boring. You do the same thing every single day. Like, no way. She's like, just try it. Worst case scenario, you hate it. Walk into the gym. Sure enough, I meet my future husband, and literally 2 months later, we got married. So I remember texting my best friend at the time and saying, I just met my husband. And she's like, stop it right now. That is nuts. And I was like, I swear. And she's like, well, what do you know about him? And I was like, nothing. It was an instant electric attraction to someone that I knew nothing about. And it was like, I'm a God person. So I just knew that God put me in that place at that time in my life. And I ended up marrying Dave 2 months later. We've been married just over 5 years now. God does do great things, people, right?
That's right.
But my husband said to me, he's like, well, babe, if eventually you want to have this traveling company where you can travel and speak and do all of this, how are we going to raise kids? Right? So I realized, like, oh my gosh, my goal back in 2014 when I built my company was to be able to be a really present mom. And now I'm living that, right? Because now, 10 years later, I make my shot, like I call my shots, right? I want to travel. I don't want to travel. I want to do more webinars than I want to speak in person unless it's the right opportunity for me to speak. Why? Because I want to be a mom. I don't want to miss a soccer practice. My son starts soccer in June. I'm so stoked. Cool. My husband and I are like, we can't wait to see him frolic in the grass. Yeah. But like, I think what I've learned in 2024, like to your original question, and I promised that I had a point, right? But what I realized in this year was all of that work and all of that sacrifice and all of the years and years of commitment to swimming and to CrossFit and all of the things has made me a fierce mom. Like I will do whatever I have to do in my company or with my company to be the number one mom where everyone is like, oh my gosh, Michelle's always there. She's never missed a darn thing. And then I was actually at a Renee Rodriguez Amplify event not long ago. And this all came full circle for me. And I realized that why do I feel so strongly about not missing anything for my son? Because my dad never missed a swim meet. I swam for 22 years. My dad never missed a swim meet, whether he was on FaceTime or physically present. He was always there. And even in college, right, like there were days where my dad would just walk on the pool deck in a full-on suit like he had just gotten off the airplane. But my dad never missed a meet, right?
Oh, man.
And so you build a company and you realize, like, why am I doing this? There are days, Brian, where I'm like, what the frick? Why are we doing this? And then you realize in those moments when you're starting to do things like that, like, that's why. So 2024 has been very freeing for me. I no longer feel the imposter syndrome of, oh, I can't believe that person got an opportunity and I didn't, which we've all felt. And I'm not going to say that the thoughts don't creep occasionally, right? You see someone that gets an opportunity and you're like, man, that would be cool if that would have been me. But that's all gone. Like I am exactly who I am. And I travel once a month. You want to be the one person I travel to, then you better call because it's probably booked, right? Like, so I've just owned my space in a really unique way. And God willing, we'll have another baby eventually and it'll be the same process.
What a beautiful story. Yeah. I thank you for sharing it because I think that's what people want to know and they connect. And I'm hearing that. And I thought the same, like my dad was the same way and mom, like they went to all kind of stuff and you're like, man, how did they make it? Especially with kids now, you go, how did they make it all? Like they both worked and all of that stuff. And I love your story too, because I think people will relate to it. It's like the imposter syndrome or going through this, but I want people to miss this. You've been doing a lot of the work. You just kind of rambled it all off, but it's like you're doing all these things. You're always competing. And that's kind of part of the show is like, I want people to find their competitive edge and go out there and use those gifts that God's given you and compete and show other people it is possible. And while that might not be for you, someone else might get that opportunity. There is an opportunity for you when you work and you put that in there. You shared something before we started, and one of my coaches used to say it a little bit different. I want you to expand on it. Be where your feet are. And you were kind of just talking about that a little bit then, like being present and all. I think that's missing today quite a bit with like the news is chaotic. We got things happening all over, especially with kids. We all know like job, this, that. How can people be more present?
That's a good question too. You're full of good questions. How to be more present. Do you want me to answer that?
We were talking about before we started the show. You said this is something you've been thinking about. And I may have framed it wrong, but you talked about just being present. And I think
like even today, right? Like being able to come out here and do this with you, like it was a 45-minute drive, so which is totally not that bad in any capacity. But my point and why I bring that up is that was 45 minutes there, 45 minutes back. So how was I going to make that so that I didn't have to have somebody else go get Knox from school? I didn't have to have somebody else drop Knox off, right? And I think the biggest answer to your question for me personally is time block and honor it. Because like if you remember me emailing back and forth, it was like, I can't do this day. I can't do that day. It has to be a Thursday, and it has to be a Thursday where I have nothing else going on in the afternoon because you're going to be my thing, right? Because I'm not going to miss those. So I think naturally we want to fill our time because we want to make money, right? Everybody wants to make money. But as a mom, as a father, as somebody who's trying to be a lot of things, hell, my husband's birthday is Monday. So I canceled my whole day. We're going to go out like on a Monday. I'm going to take him out. But normally I would be like, oh no, I got to do a coaching call at 2:30. Because my coaching slots on Monday are 2:30 and 3:30. So no, there's no way I'm not doing that, even though, no, it's my husband's birthday.
Yeah.
And my husband needs me, even though he would never say that because that's not his personality, right? But like, he needs me and I need to show up for him. And I think the biggest thing is I'm almost 34. So for context, but I have learned how to say no very confidently. Like, that doesn't work for me. And if you still want me to be here and to do it, then we'll work around it.
Love that.
So time blocking is not a suggestion. Time blocking is it has to be.
Yeah.
And then also realizing that if saying no to something, and my coach, if you guys don't know who he is, you really should, but Grant Wise, one of the most incredible humans I've ever met in my life.
Great person.
He was my coach has been my coach for 3.5 years. I've only met him in person one time. And I remember the one time we met in person, I was so nervous. It was like, why am I sweating right now? To meet Grant, but he is exactly who he appears to be. But he says to me, sometimes you have to say no to the good to make room for the great. And that's what I would tell anyone. Like, how do you be more present? What are the things that you define as being great? Because to me, being great is I'm the one picking my kid up. I'm the one dropping him off. He's got soccer. He's got whatever. He's about to start swim lessons. Do you think I'm going to miss swim lessons? Heck no. Do you think I'm going to miss bath time right at night? The simple things. So why do I CrossFit in the morning and block my morning off after I drop him off from school? Because I don't want to CrossFit in the evening, because that means I'm not home for dinner. That means I'm not home for bath time. There's no way I'm skipping that. And if you're not okay with me saying no to a call at 6:15, you're not my person.
Love it.
Own your space.
Hope people will listen to that and take inventory, because we're hearing that right now a lot in our industry, and people are mentally struggling because they are saying yes to these things because their business isn't where it is, and they think, well, if I just say yes to more things, and they realize this whole downward spiral of, wow, and then I've completely sacrificed relationships and health and life.
Have you ever heard of the doom loop? I don't know why.
Have.
So it's from Good to Great, the Jim Collins book.
Yeah.
I almost said Caldwell for some reason in my mind. Jim Collins, but the doom loop is exactly what you just said. You get trapped in this, I feel like I have to, and all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, what the heck is going on? And saying yes to more things, is that actually serving you if they're not the right things? No. Right? So sometimes you have to say no.
Yeah.
Because no is actually the better answer.
Yeah.
So
I love it. Michelle, this has been amazing. We could jam forever. We didn't even get into all the fun CrossFit stuff, but I'm glad you looped it in. And I love being a new mom and what you're doing with your company. I think people are going to find a lot of value. Like, that was the most tactical pieces that I think people need today because they're struggling. So I want to give them, we'll include the links, but where can they follow you? Where's the places you hang out right now?
Number one place is Instagram. Instagram is always going to be my platform of choice, but Berman Media Social is my Instagram handle. You can just type in Michelle Berman Michael and it'll come up. But I answer all my own DMs. That is me. So reach out and let's chat.
I love it. Guys, this has been incredible. Hopefully you took some notes. If you did not, rewind it. And as we always say, share this with some friends. I think in the real estate and mortgage industry right now, we need clarity. We need to cut through the noise, and we're starving some of this. And I think it's the information we're getting, wrong info, people that are telling us you needed millions of followers and all this stuff, and you're trying to make money on social. The reality is your core business is where you need to spend your time and attention. And people in the market, I believe, need you to show up as your best self. They need you to compete. And so as you heard Michelle go through her stories from swimming at Rutgers and then moving into CrossFit, now a mom, and all the things she's doing with Berman Media, make sure you connect up with her as speaking engagements, coaching, all the things that they've got with their course. I think it's really cool to see somebody's story and how they have now taken their identity and using that in the service of others. That's really the point of life and why God has given us, I believe, this life to serve others with the gifts and experiences that we've had in our own life. So until the next one, guys, leave us a review. Make sure you like, share it with other people. We do this really in honor to make sure that you're getting the right information, and we curate people we come on as we want to make sure that you're cutting through that. And the time you invest with us, we don't take lightly. We want to make sure that we provide value. So let us know how we're doing with that. And again, make sure you share this with your friends, as that's how we continue to grow the podcast and we bring more value to you. Until the next time, make sure you go out there and do something great, and make sure that you show up as your authentic self and you start to build your own personal brand. Catch you on the next episode. See ya.